Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and for the past few days I've been playing around with Starforge. Now, I wasn't going to make another Starforge build until I found a Starforge from Shaper. Since I've had a couple of them, I've already sold them off, and I tried it out by respecing one of my assassins into it, and I didn't really like it too much. I had a hunch that the Slayer version, building it exactly like my previous Disfavour Earthquaker and Flicker Strike character, if I built it exactly like that, I would think that Starforge should shine and should work rather well, just as it did with the Disfavour character, because I was very surprised at how powerful that character was, and there shouldn't really be any difference between those two, except for the fact that Disfavour is an axe, thus you can Earthquake with it, while Starforge is a sword, so you have to use Lacerate, and then also the bleed implicit from Disfavour. So all I had to do is take care of the bleed implicit by running a Void Heart and getting a few bleed nodes on the tree, and I've ended up with about 58% chance to bleed and about 60% chance to poison. So all in all, pretty similar on how you build this character and how you play it in the end. So for the most part, I've been playing pure Flicker Strike all the way from, I don't know, level 20 up until level 88 or so, full well knowing that when I need to, I am going to be swapping to Lacerate. But for leveling purposes, and all the way up to tier 15s, there is no greater melee clear speed than Flicker Strike, I dare say. So as long as the DPS holds up, and it holds up plenty all the way up to tier 15, you may as well Flicker Strike just to get all that XP in, and then swap to Lacerate or Earthquake if you're using Disfavour, to actually tackle the harder content and do the real DPS. But for the most part, Flicker Strike plus a War Chief Totem, bleed, poison, that sort of stuff, takes care of the single target you're going to be facing around this level of content, and takes care of it beautifully. Like, there's absolutely no problems, it's not slow, it's not painful, only using Blood Rage to hold up frenzy charges, and even that is perfectly fine. If you have enough AoE, enough damage on your Flicker Strike, then you'll be able to sustain that plenty comfortably too. And Slayer, as always, has the amazing leech passives, which let you survive quite comfortably throughout every single encounter, as well as your 20% cull and all that. So I did want to make a Slayer just because of how really nice it is to play these Slayer characters as melee. It's just an absolute treat. And then you can come across some fun shit like this, a nice massive shrine into an acceleration shrine for our Flicker Strike leap slamming action. It becomes pretty disgusting, and let's just pretend this is how the gameplay always is. It may as well be. You can get some pretty good leap slam attack speed. I'm still missing probably 20 or 30% ideally, and in the end, leap slam doesn't even feel that bad to attack with. You won't hit quite this level of leap slam. If you do, let me know how you did it, because that looks pretty amazing. But you will have some fun with the Leap Slam once you get certain levels of attack speed. Same with Lacerate. Lacerate starts out feeling kinda crap, and until you get lots of AoE, lots of attack speed, you're not going to enjoy Lacerate, and there's not going to be much point in using it. But at this stage, now that I have a Starforge, a AoE gem, and the Slayer passives, I have more than enough AoE to make Lacerate feel pretty good, and I'll show you more of that in the coming days when I actually tackle harder content and am forced to Lacerate. But so far I've only done a couple of tier 16s and haven't lacerated too much, and I'll show you that, I think, right now. Yep. So the couple of tier 16s I've done have been absolutely insane. The Forge of the Phoenix ones have been terribly rolled maps. As you can see, there's like Enfeeble, Beyonds, all kinds of other crazy shit, as well as the Atlas mods. And on this one, I believe there is 100% increased effective onslaught, as well as monsters get onslaught on hit, as well as like attack or fleet, which is attack, cast speed, movement speed. So the monsters are absolutely crazy. And these are some of the funnest maps I've ever done, but they are completely insane. As well as that, there's minus 60% regen, which is one of the counters of a build as a Slayer. 60% slower regen is just awful. You barely get a chance to leech, and it feels like you're just going to whittle away and die. I also, for some reason, came across 2 Parandus chests in the boss room for the first time ever while Beyond was up, which made this happen. A bunch of monsters, a boss, and then the other boss. Now this is the map that has 60% slow regen. You can see how much that affects my leech and my regen, and just how bad it is. It's probably the worst and only real map mod you have to worry about as a Slayer, aside of course from Fizz Reflect, because even with the passive, Fizz Reflect is still shit. This is the second Forge of the Phoenix I ran, and it happened to have double Beyond, so I rolled Beyond on the map as well as Beyond from Zana, and ended up having something like 7 Beyond bosses. Now you can see the DPS is still quite good. I do kill them almost immediately as they spawn. Something like Hast is really dangerous because he has something like 100% increased cast speed from the Onslaught and the Fleet, and it makes him super dangerous, and also makes the boss super dangerous, and I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. But yeah, this was a really fun map, and even so, the character still holds up pretty well. I'm only level 87 or 88, I think, maybe even 89, and just barely getting to tier 16s because I completely skipped tier 14s, 15s, and just dove straight into a 16. So in the coming days, you will see some more impressive showcasings of the build as I figure out the intricacies of what I need, where I'm going to need it. For example, I'm definitely going to be dropping a Quicksilver for a base ult, which is a very large defensive boost. Maybe get a bit more life here or there, maybe replace a few pieces of gear. Currently don't really have a helm enchant, for example, as well. There are still some things to figure out and work out, and I think I'll be able to take down pretty much all the Guardians fairly easily, and Shaper and Uber definitely as well. Now, the problem with some of the Guardians is my character is built around bleed and poison, and half of them are bleed immune, half of them are poison immune, so against none of the Guardians do you get your full throttling of DPS. That's kind of a bummer, but at least Uber and Shaper should take all of my DPS, and should give you an indication of how the character can perform against targets that don't have any immunities. Just like these Beyond bosses, you see they die pretty quickly when I get a decent chunk onto them. This isn't really a good example of the fight either, because once again, there's about 100% increased move and attack speed on this map with the Onslaught, and I just wanted to show you because I've never seen anything so crazy. Just look at how goddamn fast this boss is. You can't get away from him. It's really hard to dodge his attacks while standing still. So I do try and get a bit of DPS in, but it doesn't work out too great. I don't throw down my Vile Lightning Trap too often. I can't really face tank him because of how hard he hits, whereas I do think on a normal circumstance I'll be able to face tank this boss pretty comfortably and kill him rather easily too. So it's a fairly easy build to play, I think, in the end, since most bosses I'm going to be able to face tank and not really have to do too much work. It's just about fixing the DPS and getting enough to make Starforge feel comfortable, though Starforge by itself just has a shitload of fizz and does feel pretty good. Lastly, I'll also show a Minotaur boss fight. This is my first Minotaur fight. I wasn't sure what I could tank, what I couldn't, and I definitely need a base ult flask in place of the Quicksilver, as you can see. I didn't throw down a lightning trap forever either, so I think there's still a bit of damage to gain and a bit of ideal damage situations to figure out for him, because I didn't play it the best, but I could face tank just about everything. It's a pretty straightforward fight, and the DPS, while it's not the Abyssus Barrage Doomfletch DPS, it's still fairly respectable, and when I do get a Vile Lightning Trap down, it becomes, yeah, pretty damn good, and I have high hopes for this character coming into Uber and Shaper. But I'll show you what the character consists of right now in case you want to know what the gear looks like. Now, feel free first and foremost to ignore the fact that this is a 6-link, because up until like the end of today's stream I did not 6-link this weapon. I wasn't using a 6-link, I was just running a 5-link Starforge, and up until level 89 I was purely on a 5-link, and a 6-link really doesn't matter for this build because the last link I can do is less duration for my Warchief Totem, and I'll explain that in a second. What you're really looking for is a 6-link Astral Plate, which is very affordable. Just buying a base or turning it in from Celestial Justicars only costs something like 40 to 60 C right now, which is ridiculously cheap for a 6-link Astral I level 80, and then you craft it yourself using essences or Chaos Spam. And that's where you house your Flicker Strike or your Lacerate combo. So currently my Flicker Strike sits here, and it's Flicker Strike, Melee Splash, Multi-Strike, Melee Fizz. Those are your 4 staples. I then go Increased Area for smoothness, and then since I don't really have much else I can do, it's faster attacks. You could also put in something like Fortify, but there's not really terribly great choices. Maybe even a Conk Effect if you feel like that's the way to go. And then when I put on Lacerate for this character, you sub out Flicker Strike for Lacerate and Melee Splash for Fortify for the most part, but you can also sub in Bloodlust and use your Leap Slam to trigger all of your bleeding. So that'll make your Lacerate do a shitload of damage, as well as when you put in Conk Effect, and that, yeah, should take care of a lot of the harder, stronger bosses. Faster attacks feels pretty crucial just so you can get some good Lacerates going without feeling locked down from your multi-strike. So I do recommend trying to combo faster attacks, multi-strike, increased area, all of that sort of shit. And then use Bloodlust or Fortify as you see fit. But that's the Lacerate, that's the Flicker combo. Your War Chief Totem combo is War Chief, Melee Fizz, Conk Effect, Bloodlust, and faster attacks. The 6th link isn't terribly important, but it should be less duration when you can get it. Try and get a non-quality one, and it's just 20% more damage in the end. So I didn't really need a 6th link, but we got it, so I'm going to be using this in the future. The rest of the gear is actually very straightforward, there's nothing too exciting. Get yourself a Void Heart because you can get up to like 40-45% bleed and poison, I think. And then stacking it with nodes like this one, and this one, you try and get your bleed and poison up to about 60% each. Something else to mention is the character is Blood Magic, because there's not much else I can do with my mana as this character. Hatred, Herald of Ash, they're all useless. Blasphemy, Vulnerability, I'm running on the Witchfire, so don't need a Blasphemy. Not going a second curse with Temp Chains this time around. So there's not much else I can do with my mana. I'm just running an Essence Worm with a Grace involved and some Iron Reflexes in there. So in the end, I have about 4,000 armor, 27 reduction right now. With your Grace up, it goes up to 45%, 10k, and ends up being kinda tanky since you have Fortify up all the time. You got your Lion's Roar, which makes you a bit tankier, and then I'll have a base ult there soon too. And the Slayer Leech passives, these over here, are completely insane for Leech. If you've never tried them out, I recommend you make a Slayer and enjoy these passives, because it makes for a very comfortable play style of the character, and in general, this type of melee Flicker Strike build is just very nice to play if you can get past the fact that Flicker Strike kind of gives you a seizure every now and then. But if you don't like it, you can by all means just use Lacerate all the time, or not even build with a sword. You can kind of use anything, doesn't have to be a Starforge, can be some sort of 500 DPS weapon, but then you will probably want something like a Hatred involved as well, since there's a bit of a DPS loss there. And if you're not using Starforge, you can then afford to use a Taste of Hate instead of Quicksilver rather than a base ult. There's not much to actually say about the build at this stage. Getting a bit of bleed and poison in, using some pretty basic rares besides the Astral and the Starforge. So the rest of the build isn't really anything, it's just getting a Starforge and trying to make it work, because I haven't seen any terribly impressive Starforge builds yet out of anyone that aren't really War Chief. So that's the goal here. I'll keep you posted in the next couple of days. Hopefully we can take down Uber-Atziri, Shaper, and all the Guardians rather smoothly. And if I can at least farm Uber-Atziri and compare it to the Disfavour build, then I'll be happy. That's all I'm really going for. So thank you very much for watching, and see you guys next time.